Okay, I'm going to show you how to use the Desmos online graphing calculator to perform a sinusoidal regression. That's a mouthful. All a regression does is it just means that we're using technology to find the line, or in this case, the curve of best fit. So we're going to go ahead and use Desmos to do that. This is probably what it looks like when you get it open. Over here on the side, you can go ahead and get rid of this keypad because we can use our computer's keypad to put in anything that we need. The first thing that we're going to have to do is put in some data. So over here where it says add item, you're going to drag down the plus, and we want to open up a table because that's where we're going to enter our data. On the weather-based website, which I gave you a link to in your project, you're going to pick your city of your destination. I chose Chico, California. That's where I went to college. So the very first row here, average temperature, this is the average temperature for 1 year. That's what we're going to use. Now keep in mind, because the first thing I thought when I looked at this was it gets way hotter than that in August. These are average temperatures. So that means that there's a high and a low that balanced out to get us to 76, 78. If you look at Kansas City's data, it shows that it's way cooler in the summertime than it actually is here. So just something to kind of keep in mind. So what we are going to do, I'm going to drag this out here so I can have it separately, is we are going to enter this data for 1 year. So for our X values, we're going to use the numbers that represent our months. So 1 through 12. Okay. Then for our Y values, we're going to put in the temperatures. So in January, it was 45, then 49, then 53, 59, 65, 73, 78, 76. Feel free to fast forward while I put in my data. 63, 53, and what's that last one? 45. Okay, so we've got our data. That's really all that we need off of there. And so we can hit enter and it plots our points. But you'll notice if you look over on the graph, we don't see any points there. The reason for that is our scale. So the way that we can fix that to see what we want is go over here to this little wrench that tells you graph settings. Click on that. And we can go through and change our low value and our high value. I'm going to put -1 just because I don't want it to go all the way to the edge. And I'm going to put 13 for my highest. 12 would be the month, the last one. So I'm going to go one further. The step tells us what to count by. So I'm going to put 1 because I want to be able to see where every month is. Y-axis, I'm going to start at -5. And then since we're talking about temperature, I'm going to go up to say 100 and put my step at 10. And you can see, if we look now at our graph, that I have several data points, and those are everything from my table. So it just graphed our data for us, which is pretty cool. So you can see how this is sort of our hill that comes up and then comes down. If we were to continue every year and start back over at January, we would see that it would kind of start this curve of up and down, up and down. That's why we're going to use a sinusoidal function. In this case, we're going to use the sine function to model this data. Now, here's how we can use Desmos to do this regression. So notice that we called this table x1 for the x's and y1 for the y's. We need to make sure we reference that when we write our equation. Now, remember that our equation for a sine graph is y equals a times the sine of bx minus c plus d. We're going to have to type this in a little bit differently for the computer to recognize it, and it's going to look like this. So the y equals, since we want it to use the y values from our data table, we're going to type y1. You notice it automatically puts it down, and it automatically recognizes that we had 12 elements in our list. It's counting these 12 numbers as our y value. Instead of equals, the way that we tell it to do a regression is with our little tilde button, and that's underneath your escape button right there at the very top. So we'll type in the rest. It doesn't matter whether you use capitals. A sine, here's where it gets a little bit weird. We have to factor out the b. Remember that the way we find the period and the phase shift is to divide by b in both cases. So in order for the computer to recognize this, we have to take it out. And so I factor out the b, and that's where we're going to have it find our c values. I know that's a little different than what we've done in class. And then we have plus d on the outside. I can hit enter, and oh, I forgot. You see, it didn't automatically give me my values. That's because I didn't tell it what x's to use. I need to tell it x1 from my table. And you can see now that it's given us our curve. So at the end of the year, this is December, theoretically, January would be next. And then over time, the temperature would go back up until I hit the summer months and then come back down. So this is the sine curve that models this data. So to get our equation, we just need to plug in each of these 4 parameters to our equation. And let's round to keep it fairly accurate. Let's use 3 decimal places when we come up with our equations. So that is where we are going to put everything, and there's your regression equation. Now, because we're only interested in temperatures between 70 and 80 degrees, I'm going to go ahead and graph 2 additional equations. I'm going to graph the horizontal lines y equals 70. There's that. And I'm going to graph the line y equals 80. So there's our 2 lines. We can see that anywhere in between here is going to be the ideal time that I want to be in this city. So we can find these points where this starts. If I click on this, I see 5.35 and 70. So 5.35, that's about 5 1/3. So 1/3 of the way through May is when I can go to Chico to begin my nice weather time frame. So I might say like May 10th is when I would go. Then I would need to leave by 9, which is September. So I can get there in May 1st and stay through September 1st, or sorry, May 10th, and then get there through September 1st before I move on to my next destination. Hopefully that helps you as you go to make some of your decisions.